Welcome to you all. It's my pleasure on behalf of the Center for Latin American Studies at the University of Chicago to welcome you to our Latin American briefing series on current events. Our speaker this evening is the renowned urban planner, Jaime Lerner, who has become a symbol of possibility and ingenuity in creating sustainable urbanism. Mr. Lerner trained as an architect and as an urban planner, and in the 1960s joined the Instituto de Pesquisa y Planejamento Urbano de Curitiba, the Institute of Urban Planning and Research of Curitiba, or IPUC. And among that institute's noted achievements in the following years was a master plan for the city of Curitiba that included parks and green spaces for flood control, an incentive system for depositing garbage and for recycling, but probably the best known of the innovations of the measures that were implemented in the city is what's now known as the integrated bus transit network, a combination of express bus stations and express bus lanes that's inspired cities all around the world, I think most recently Los Angeles, to avoid the disastrously expensive cost of subterranean subway lines and even to avoid the slightly less disastrous expense of light rail in favor of integrated bus transit. Mr. Lerner was appointed and elected mayor of the city of Curitiba in the 1970s and 1980s and implemented many of the measures of these plans. He was also elected twice to the governorship of the state of Paraná in the 1990s, and during his tenure as governor, he emphasized the creation of entrepreneurial poles for a state with an already diversified economy to carry forward. In the United States, I think Mr. Lerner became known to many people through the championship of Bill McKibben of Lerner's vision for Curitiba and for cities like Curitiba as sustainable cities. Among the international recognition of his work is international awards such as the United Nations Environment Award in 1990, recently the presidency of the International Union of Architects for from 2002 to 2005. His awards are too numerous to mention. He's been professor at the Federal University of Paraná and at the University of California at Berkeley. He is in the city of Chicago. This is almost Curitiba week. We've had many distinguished visitors from Paraná lately. He's in the city of Chicago for part of the symposium on real cities. It has a long program, which is unfortunately much too long for me to describe here. But if you're interested in speaking to Mr. Lerner and to other architects who've come for that symposium, its program is posted on a link of the website of the Consulate of Brazil in Chicago. The inauguration of the Real City Symposium will be tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. in the Instituto Cervantes in downtown Chicago. So I encourage you, if you'd like to participate in more activities this weekend, to look up this very interesting symposium, which is organized in part by the Illinois-São Paulo Partners of the Americas. So it's my great pleasure to welcome Jaime Lerner, and after the talk, there'll be an opportunity for questions and answers.
So, and when I left as a mayor, the city, as a mayor of the city, before being a governor, I spent some time in Cuba. I work in many cities, but in Cuba I went to about a month. And you know, in Cuba, there was the former prime minister. He used to speak for about 11 hours, 12 hours. And sometimes when I'm happy, I have this Cuban spirit. And tonight I'm happy. So if you brought your pajamas, you'll be at home. So I would like to just to share some ideas about the city. Because sometimes we have a pessimistic vision about the future of the cities. Some cities, so the people, they are saying, oh, our city is so big, 15 million people, or in other cities, we don't have the financial resources, we are so poor. Everything is being used as an excuse. And the more after working about 35 years in cities, I'm convinced that every city, no matter its scale, no matter the financial conditions, they can improve their quality of life in less than 3 years. Or at least starting to improve the quality of life. Because starting is important. Innovation is starting. So, but in many cities, we're facing the lack of decisions, we're facing the lack of strategy, we're facing the lack of solidarity. So I think a city you can change better when you have a political decision, when you have solidarity, when you have a strategy, and most important, when you can organize from in every problem equation of co-responsibility. So, let me check here. Where is the... Ah. Okay. So, and you need a strategy always, and but I want to introduce you to some characters from a book that I wrote about 20 years ago, trying to teach children or teenagers or people from every age about the cities. And the best for me of quality of life is the turtle. Because the turtle is an example of living, working, and moving together. And the city is a structure of living and working together. But, and the shell of the turtle looks like an urban architecture. So you can imagine what could happen if you cut the shell of the turtle. Living here, working there, having leisure here, the turtle will die. And it's happening in most of the cities in the world. Because we are separating urban functions, we are separating people by income, by religion, by age, and this is not sustainable. This is bad for the cities. But there's another character, Otto, the automobile. It's a guy who is invited for a party and he doesn't want to leave. And he drinks a lot. And he coughs a lot. At the same time, he's very egotist because he carries one or two people or three. And it's a very demanding, very egotist guy and very demanding person. Every time more viaducts, every time more freeways. And I used to say, probably you heard this saying, that the car is like our mother-in-law. Yeah, we have to have good relationships with our mother-in-law, but we cannot leave she'll conduct our life. In other words, if the only woman of your life is your mother-in-law, you have a problem. So this is the bus, very friendly. It transports 300 passengers. And what I would like to say, every city has a design. If it's linear, if it's radial, every city has a design. It's, and this is the design of Curitiba, my city, of the city of Rio. It's like two birds kissing themselves along the bridge. Oaxaca, Mexico, San Francisco, Market Street and Van Ness and the waterfront. So it's a strange archaeology where you try to catch what is the design of the city. It's a strange archaeology where you try to catch all roads and spaces that they are important for us, and we're trying to give to them a spine, a structure of growth, of living, working together. And this is of Curitiba, where land use, it's a structure of living, working, leisure together. Where the land use, where we have more density, where we have better offer of public transport. And this is, if it's good or bad architecture, it doesn't matter. This is the densification of the city along the public transport. The best elogio, what you get, the best praise I had in my life was from my driver. He took me, because he used to go every night with me at that time when we didn't have visual facilities. So we took the model of the city, we tried to explain the people, and he always had to transport the model, so he knew well the model. So, and I invited him to go to Brasilia once. Let's go to Brasilia. So, but I never took an airplane. So, better, let's go. So when he was on the plane, he was looking to the city and he said, oh, it's exactly like the model. That I think this is, it's an idea that happened. It's a structure of living and working together. And that's because every city, we have common problems. Education, healthcare, the care of children, safety. But there are three main problems that they are becoming important, not only for your city, but for the whole mankind. One is mobility, the other is sustainability, and the third is social diversity, or coexistence, tolerance. So, and the problem of mobility is in many cities we're waiting too much for a solution. We're waiting to have a subway. Okay, many cities of the world, they can have a subway, but it's becoming very important, very expensive. So London, Moscow, New York, and Paris, of course, they had a complete network because they have built 150 years ago in London, 120, 100 years ago, when it was less expensive to work underground. Now it's very difficult. You know, the city of New York, they're trying to implement the Second Avenue line, and they've been discussing for 50 years. And if they'll start now, it's more 20 years. It's 70 years and $4 billion. And this line, the Second Avenue line, would not transport more passengers than the line that crosses close to my house in Curitiba. And the cost 100 times less expensive. You can build this in 3 years. This is the evolution of the system. We started in 74, 25,000 passengers a day, and now we are transporting 2,300,000 passengers a day, which is more than the subway of Rio, together with the suburb railroad. And it's almost the same number of passengers than the subway in São Paulo. But what is the main key issue of this system? Of course, dedicated lanes, but boarding facilities. You can pay before entering the bus and you're boarding at the same level. And the frequency is less, you don't wait more than 1 minute for a bus. So it's like metronizing the bus. By the way, a few years ago, I was interviewed by a reporter of the New York Times. He was in my apartment. He was asking me what is the system of transport of Curitiba? I told him, it's dedicated lanes, boarding facilities, and frequency. You don't have to wait more than 1 minute. My wife, she was listening, and in the opposition as always, she said, no, it's impossible. So I was ashamed. She was calling me a liar in front of the reporter of the New York Times. So I decided, I took boats to the terrace, to the porch, and we tried to figure out how many buses we have. We have a bus every 40 seconds. That means my moral in my house, at least for 3 months, was great. And I realized one thing. You can never speak to a woman before 10 in the morning. That's a wise advice. Never try to speak before. Well, this is how it works. This is glass. Very simple. And there's a few underground systems that they have facilities for handicapped. And this works. So it allows you to use the system as any other passenger. But we started the idea how to integrate bus and subway in Rio when I worked for the year 2000 project. That was in '83. And at that time we proposed a connection between the subway and the bus. And at that time, the people from the subway, they were against the private initiative that they run the public transport, they were against. And after 25 years after, they contracted us for the same idea for the mobility project for the Olympic Games. So, but I don't even, I have the feeling that the future is on surface. I never try to prove which system is the best. If you have a subway, you have to have a smart subway. If you have a bus, you have to have a smart bus, a smart taxi, and an individual transport without private ownership, like the bike in Paris, the Velib, or a small car that we are designing. I'm going to show you. It's because the car, of course, will have the normal cars, but the car for 150 kilometers per hour is not a car for the city. So for routine itinerary, you have to use the combination of the whole systems. And the idea is it's not enough changing the motor for an electric, a car for an electric car, because you will have any way. You have, bottlenecks. So the idea, this is the idea of the bike. We have in many cities in Europe, they transform the bike in public transport. And this is the car, the smallest car of the world. It's 1/4. It's the half of the size on the width of the smart and the half on the length. It's 4 times smaller than the smart car. And I can fit in this car. So, and this is the 3rd prototype, and we're working on a new one. We're going to present the Biennale of Design in Saint-Étienne. It's a recyclable car. It's very, very, very sustainable. And this, you can have an idea about the scale on this. The car is called dock, of docking. So you dock the car to recharge. It's solar energy and battery. And this is, and dock. Dock. Okay. So I think I'm not a car designer. All I want is to give an idea about how it's going to be the use of the car in a normal path of a city. And you're going to dock this way or other way. And the idea is developing this to help the system of public transport. This is in Rio, using downtown area, this very narrow streets, using this car. This is the car for 2 seats, and the former Minister of Environment in Rio. And this is the system we proposed for the Olympic Games. The integration is going to be with this connection. It's glass. You'll see this is the model. You're leaving the bus, and this is the concourse level, and after the subway. It's the same system. The vehicle is different. And this is how it's going to look in the urban landscape, in the landscape of Rio. It's not going to be colored during the day. It's LED. It's because Rio is not Shanghai. But at night it's going to be slightly colored, this way, or this way, or this way. But this is another idea we propose for São Paulo, because São Paulo, it's a very difficult city. They have 3 subway lines, and they're starting the 4th line. But 84% of people, they are moving on surface. But the surface is badly operated. But what is happening now is the suburb railroad, they are improving the quality of the suburb railroad. So why not why not combining the suburb railroad with land use and a park, a promenade? You know, the High Line in New York is very small, but it's a big High Line, and we'll have the connection, and we can have a city like São Paulo without periphery. So every income you could link to this park, to this linear park. And this way you can have bikes, electric cars, and like this. And the new buildings, the idea is they to share the cost of the promenade. This project we designed also, we detained some students in New York at Columbia University. We developed a studio with people from architecture and real estate. And this is the idea. And it's like a frame where inside is the old part of the city, and we're providing the frame modern or contemporary architecture, but we're keeping the story of every borough. And let's speak a little bit about sustainability. It's not only changing, as we did, from a half square meters of green area per inhabitant for 52 square meters of green area, and the population tripled, so it's 300 times more. But the parks, or we took quarries, because a quarry is a wand made in nature. But at the same time, this wand was transformed in a new landscape, and we took advantage of this and this spaces, and this is the Open University for Environment. This is the Botanic Garden. How long it takes to build a Botanic Garden? 300 years, 100 years. This was built in 3 months. But there is no miracle. We have a part which the people are using, but we're going to plant for 100 years. But the park exists from now on. And this is an old quarry that was transformed in a theater in 2 months. We made a bid for the material, the metal tubes, and the manpower. In 2 months, it was the inauguration of this theater. Or this quarry where we had a landfill, and we stopped and we transformed this landfill in a beautiful park. But the key issue is garbage. So we didn't have space in my city for landfills. So we had to organize a way how to transform a problem in 1/3 of the problem. That means there is the organic, there is the garbage that you can, for instance, grass that you can recycle and recyclable materials. And we started teaching the children during 6 months. And the children, they teach their parents. After we have the campaign, and it's the highest rate of separation of garbage in the world for more than 20 years, 70%. Sometimes it drops to 60, but it's still an amazing number because each person knows how to separate and how to make this separation on your house. We have a different collect, one for garbage and the other for recyclable. Daily for garbage for organic and twice a week for recyclable materials. And at the same time, what is sustainability? I've been in many many discussions about sustainability. Many banks, I think they are sustainable because their checks, the checkbooks are from recyclable paper. Or some very ghettos of rich people, condominiums they're building, and they're saying they have some trees and this is sustainable. It's not sustainable because it's separated from the city. And so there are some people, they understand sustainability is linked to new materials. It's very important, but it's not enough. Or sustainability is linked to green buildings. Very, very important, but it's not enough. We cannot be so naive and thinking that we are here in a green building, we're going to this green building, but on the itinerary we'll go through a city which is not green, not sustainable. So, or new sources of energy, or recycling, reusing, everything is important from now on. Very, very important. But we have to understand that 75% of carbon emissions are related to the cities. It's in the city that we can be more effective. That means it's in the city. And what could be done in the cities? What can you, at least 3 single things. 1, use your car less. I'm not saying no, don't use your car, but at least in routine itineraries, the cities will have to provide a good public transport from now on. And separate your garbage, 2nd. 3rd, live closer to your work or bring the work closer to home. And we have to understand that sustainability is an equation between what we save and what we waste. The less we waste, the more sustainable we are. So, but there's many forms. For instance, the multi-use city. You can use the city in different ways. For instance, markets, street markets at night. And also, the city is like our portrait of a family. You don't rip your portrait of your family, even if you don't like the nose of your uncle, because this portrait is you. So there are some spaces that are our reference, our identity. And some parts, they are not landmarks, important landmarks, but they are important for the city. They are references for the city. This is a theater done in 1973. This is the historic center, which is most German. And this, the pedestrian mall, was done in 72 hours. After we'll discuss this. This is the building that shows the story of the city, because it's a very diverse ethnic contribution. It's like Chicago, we have people from everywhere. So in the 300th anniversary of the city, we started to pay homage to our ethnic contribution. And we started with the portal of the Italians, or the Ukrainian park, or the Polish park, or the Japanese square, or the German park. And all of a sudden, the Soviet Union, they split. And since we have people from Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, we had to stop the program because we didn't have them. So, what I'm doing now, I'm doing urban acupuncture. Why? Because the process of planning takes time. And it has to take time. But sometimes you can, through a focal idea, propose a focal project that can create a new energy to the city. It's not instead of the process of planning, it's help the process of planning. And I would like to give some examples of acupunctures. For instance, this is the most genius example. Is the American or American Chinese architect EMP. He, with the pyramid, he solved the problem of centuries. But this problem of having big buildings, sometimes, which the most beautiful park in New York is the smaller park, 13 meters per 32. It's the Bailey Park in East 53rd Street. Or the beautiful acupuncture done by Oscar Niemeyer in Curitiba, where he linked an old in the early 60s with this big eye. And this is a museum. It's a big museum. And he did the project at 9 years. And he's 102 years old and still working. I asked him, Oscar, why are you working so hard? He answered me, because someone on the family has to work. At 98, he married a woman with 65. So, and this is an acupuncture that we made the project, my office. It, the park of the Bossa Nova Park. You know the Bossa Nova is the soundtrack of Rio. And that's the idea. It's like a keyboard. Com o doce balanço do mar. And this is going to be built. And the whole story of the Bossa Nova is going to be, we're going to have in this building, and 2 theaters. Or this mobility museum, I did a project for Fittipaldi. He wanted to have a, from speed museum. I told him, no, it's about mobility. And the idea is, it's like the speed, the freezed speed. And this is the project. or the sustainable museums, where we're trying to teach children with games how to teach them to learn about sustainability. And the artists in the cube will explain about that. And this is the stadium Boca Juniors in Buenos Aires. We proposed a new shape to the stadium to being more sustainable, more safe, and increase the number of people. And this is a project we did for the 50th anniversary of Brasilia, where it's, you know, the city, the pilot plan of Brasilia is too formal, and it's a great example of modern architecture. But there are 500,000 people living there and 2,500,000 people working there. But these 2,500,000, they are living outside the city, and it's a chaos. So the idea is giving a structure of growth of the satellite cities along the parks, which is an analogy with the two metaphors. One, the plain and the lake and the formal, the pilot plan, and the birds and the parks, and the new project for the satellite cities. And we'll have one boulevard linking the two parts. This is the Burle Marx Park. We did the project in Brasilia, where being sustainable is not wasting. So we have in Valencia a beautiful project from Calatrava, which is Ombractum. It's a building to provide shade. But we didn't have the money to do this. There's a square of shade in Brasilia with a bouquet of bamboos. Very simple. I have an architect in my office. He knows everything about bamboos. When the bamboo is set, when we can cut the bamboo. So we did, that's the idea. Or this reservoir of water was transformed in a museum in Cuiabá. Or in Oaxaca, we proposed they wanted to build an exhibition center for 10 million people. I told them, 10,000 people, I'm sorry. I told them, you don't need this, because convention center for 10,000 people, you need only 4 auditoriums. And when you have 10,000 people, you can have them in the patio. So it's no need to build to waste. And this is the design we're doing for Luanda, Angola. Just walkways. But it's incredible how the people, they like this. Every night it's a crowd there, and they are living in. At night they are meeting in these streets. Or this is the idea for David, Panama's second city in Panama, where there is no design. It's only the design of the steps. And for how do you say, a religious procession. And so the design of the steps will provide this design. So it's not urban furniture, it's human furniture. Or this street, we have a wall in a big factory in San Caetano, São Paulo, and we propose for the car industries to go back 3 meters We will have a window along the downtown area. It's going to be full of cafes or bookstores. And this is the idea for Santiago de los Caballeros in the Dominican Republic, where we propose to save the river. And at the same time to transform for the 500th anniversary of Santiago, it's how to transform the old airport in a place for young people. And you know, most of the shows are in parking lots. And the people, we say in Portuguese, bombando, bombing in this. But you can have a beautiful place. So we design the lodges, four cylinders in every side, and it will look like a beautiful theater. Or this is the most recent project we're doing in Mazatlan, Mexico, where we have an island which is in front of the historic center. It never was used because they have 2,000 people, fishermen. They are living in this island. So they made an agreement with an engineer. So that's the project. The idea is 0 cars. It's 15 kilometers of waterfront, 0 cars, and we're not touching the terrain because we have sand dunes, and so we're not touching the landscape. At the same time, the island is modulated by palm trees every 10 meters. So our idea is building in between the palm trees, and very low, very low-cost infrastructure, and the lighting is going to be through the palm trees, public lighting. And this is the shade, always the example of how to create shade. And they wanted to build a big hotel and convention center. And it doesn't fit in that landscape. So we realized that they have a hill that was cut, and they took the stones to make the pier. So we propose to remake the silhouette of the hill, and this is going to be the hotel. This is in China. They wanted in this area, Jinan, to build and to replace old villages by modern architecture. Thank you. And we proposed not touch the old villages and to build as a frame with new architecture. And like in a painter, you have the painter, and the passepartout and the frame. So the passepartout is going to be the space where they are going to plant. And the frame is going to be the modern architecture and will keep the memory and the identity of the villages. Or this street in Tokyo, we're proposing to link 2 parts of the street of the area through what I say invisible sewing. where, and here's the idea of in São Paulo, where we proposed the portable streets to bring street life, because it takes too much time to recycle, rebuild, and nobody wants to live in this area. So unless you have city life during the whole night. And we proposed a portable street that we were bringing on a Friday night, and we're removing it on Monday morning, and during the week it's going to be in front of a university. And this is the project we did for this area. And this is the portable street. It's like the Bouquiniste in Paris. It's a new design where we transform these models in portable street, bus shelter, newsstand, working station, hotel in airports, living, working, and the car. And this is the idea at night in Rio for this area. And during the Festival of Theater in Curitiba, we put we organized a part of the street in this place, and it's with LED. You can put a cafe or a Prada shop. And this is the hotel or resting place in an airport. And this is the Turtle Man. Oh, okay. This is my office, where I did the project when I was third degree of architecture. When I finished university, I won a competition in architecture. With the money, I started the house. And recently we increased the house, keeping the house and keeping the trees. But in '97, we organized the World Nature Games. And in that year, we didn't have Olympic Games, we didn't have World Cup, and we knew just we had to prepare 6 months. Just we had the timing of 6 months. And we organized the World Nature Games in the area where the strong of the nature meets the strong of the work of the man. The big hydroelectric plant. And we organized this World Games of Nature without spending a cent in stadiums and arenas, as in nature. And ballooning, rafting, and we had 60 countries, 120 TV stations, and we didn't spend a cent in buildings. Or my state, we have 399 municipalities. There are some cities, 3,000 people, 4,000 people. It's impossible to have a theater. So we proposed a cultural convoy. That means 10 buses, recycled these buses for theater, for opera, for dance, and during 5 years they traveled around the state, and we had an average of 1,500 people every show. So, to finish, sometimes I try to, probably most of you will perhaps understand, this guy is so naive, so, because everything is easy for him. I wanted to just emphasize that innovation is starting. And one of the big problems we have in our cities is that people are afraid to start. They don't want to take risks. They want to have all the answers before. You cannot be so prepotent on having all the answers. You have to imagine this is an itinerary where you start and you leave some room to people to correct you if you are not in the right track. It's like you can write a whole tractate about how to swim. Move your arm and legs at the same time. At the moment you dive in the water, you'll see, oh, it's not so difficult. I remember when I was a teenager, I used to read tractates about sex. And then I realized that it was not so difficult. It's innovation is starting. So if you want creativity, cut 1 for your budget. If you want sustainability, cut 2 zeros from your budget. But if you want solidarity, keep your identity and respect others' diversity. And to finish, I want to say, what is the design of a city? It's a collective dream. Every time I was asked how to make it happen, my idea is to make it happen is to propose a scenario, an idea, a project that everyone or the large majority, they'll understand it is desirable. If they understand it is desirable, they'll help you to make it happen. So it's transforming this scenario in a collective dream. Every time when in the city, I'm trying to ask mayors or planners, okay, what's the problem? And they're trying to tell me, oh, the problem is floods, the problem is safety, the problem is education, healthcare, mobility. Okay. And I start to ask them, and what is your dream? And most of them, they don't have a dream. I asked a governor of Perm, Russia, close to the, how do you say, coolest place, Siberia. So I asked him, what's your dream? He told me, my dream is young people from my city. I would like that I wish they'll stay in Perm, not wanting to go to Moscow. Okay, it's what you're doing to do that. And what you're doing? Well, I'm trying to prepare my city to be a good city for young people and children. Okay, what's your idea? My idea is that city should be the cultural center of Russia. And he's doing that, or he's trying to do that. So, to finish, I would like to say this: sometimes it's hard to make a dream come true. But I'm sure that if you're not, sometimes if you cannot fulfill this dream, don't be frustrated. Because if you dedicate yourself deeply to this dream, you can be sure that one day this dream will go around you and will hit you and will ask, you remember me? I'm your dream. It's your second chance. Don't throw it away. Thank you. If there are questions, I would be happy if I can answer. I'll do it. Okay.
So I was wondering, as sustainability and being green is more fashionable and more products are trying to get us to buy green, can you give us some advice as consumers? Because I've been reading a little bit about how buying a green car might be worse for the environment if your old car consumes so much metal to be built, and then how much metal is being used to build this green car. And in the end, even though you're driving a green car, you might be polluting more. So how can we as consumers be smart and buy better? Keep things clean or
Well, if I understood well your question, because I have some problems of, the question is age here. But when we started to transform the city in Curitiba, there was an idea of building parks. Every kilometer park for, and we intended to start to build. And when we discussed this with the community, they answered me, why are you trying to build new parks, and why not saving the existing woods? So, because the parks will take 25 years to build until the vegetation will grow up, the trees will grow up. So, and we started to do it, saving the existing woods. And with a very smart negotiation, we saved around 90% of the existing woods. That's why it's a so green city. So the question is, sometimes I have this feeling that, for instance, building a park, they start doing fences. And the best fence is a bikeway, so you don't have to build. Just define the area. And little by, it has not to be built all the park. Little by little you're going to build. So you'll never finish a park, you'll start a park. But I don't feel I answer your question. Please, I didn't understand well.
no, I'm just wondering.
It's important, but it's not enough. It's important, of course, having recyclable bags, everything recyclable, yes. But mostly, the most important, my point of view, is the city. You have to do both. I'm sorry, I didn't understand well. Okay, two questions because you're tired. Yeah.
Having moved from Brazil to the U.S., one of the key differences I saw in the cities is how maybe restrictive in terms of laws cities are here as compared to Brazil. So you're not allowed to be in parks after 11. You're definitely not allowed to drink on the street. There's a lot of more laws regarding how you behave and interact with the city. That being said, cities are nicer, are safe, and are clean. So I was just wondering, how do you view this whole theory of like zero tolerance and creating this artificial interaction with the city vis-a-vis the Brazilian idea where it's all free without the use of force?
Well, I'd like to give the example of the beach in Rio. They know how to use the beach. It's nothing paved. It's no they're using in different ways during the day and night for different sports, and it works. There's nothing built. And when you're going to some place, there's such, Barcelona, which the city, I like Barcelona, but in front on the seashore, the waterfront, they have such complicated urban furniture that you can barely see the water. So my idea is, instead of ego architecture, we have to have ego. Instead of ego architecture, we have to have eco architecture. Because some buildings, some projects, they are more linked to the ego than to the city. Of course, we are proud of our stars of architecture. We're very proud of them, but we need a constellation of professionals to work in our cities, to give ideas, to propose. In proposing is important. Ideas, starting. Probably your idea, it's not going to be done, but you can open a road, you can start a road. Any other? Last.
I was wondering, do you think that it's possible to enact really great changes in the great urban planning if you're not in the political system? And how do you think that politics and being the mayor affected, building the BRT line? Just because I see as a great barrier in Chicago is Chicago politics. Like, even if we wanted to have something like bus rapid transit, the mayor sold off the parking meters, which basically means that they privatize our streets. So can you describe a little bit about the interplay between politics and...
Okay. Sometimes we think that everything is, the problem are the politicians. The problem is a lack of communication between politicians and the population, between planners and the politicians, between planners and the population. Because if I cannot see what is the scenario that is proposed, what could be my answer? It's not only, that's my feeling, is which scenario we want, what we really, what are the alternatives that are proposed to a city, to a state, to a country, scenarios, not I'm going to provide jobs or going to decrease the taxes. This is not a scenario. And we are used to this kind of discussions. We never discuss. Well, I'll give you an example. My state, if you look at the map of the state, it's like, como se quebra-cabeça? Puzzle. It's like a puzzle because every municipality has the political boundaries. But it's not related to the terrain, it's not related to the rivers, it's not related to the parks, nothing. So you're looking at that, it's nothing. At the moment you understand the city, the state, the country, it's different. So that's why I'm obsessed about the idea how to teach children about their cities. And recently, about 2 years ago, we finished a movie with I took a movie director, friend of mine. We made a movie, 6 minutes movie, that tries to explain sustainability for the children. This movie is called A Convenient Start. There are three movies. An Inconvenient Truth, which is the big contribution of Al Gore to the whole mankind. There is the second, A Convenient Truth, which is a film in California they did about Curitiba. And this movie with it's A Convenient Start. You can check in the YouTube, A Convenient Start. 6 minutes and try to explain. This movie won a festival of movies in New York about movies about sustainability. We won the festival. It's not such a big deal. We had a few competitors, but it doesn't matter. I won the festival. Thank you. Thank you.